Well, Benghazi back in the spotlight today. A hearing, as we just showed you, underway right now in Capitol Hill with lawmakers asking why nobody in the State Department was held accountable for the deadly terror attack on our consulate in Libya. Welcome to Happening Now. Great to see you today. I'm Jenna Lee.
I'm Greg Jarrett in for John Scott. The House Foreign Affairs Committee right now seeking accountability for Benghazi, and they're questioning the Undersecretary of
We'll explain why in just a moment. Lawmakers want to know who made the policy call leading to what they say is substandard security at our facility in Benghazi. Republicans are criticizing the official report that recommended disciplinary action against 4 State Department employees. The attack left 4 Americans dead, as you know, including our ambassador, Chris Stevens. The House Government Oversight Committee will hold an additional hearing tomorrow on the report. That committee is chaired by Darrell Issa. He joined America's Newsroom earlier today, calling the official report deeply flawed.
Our study shows the Accountability Review Board gave a complete pass to Undersecretary Kennedy, a man who, in consultation with Secretary Clinton, made the decision to keep the Benghazi facility open and was in the process of, with Secretary Clinton, was in the process of making Benghazi potentially a permanent consulate as the ambassador was attacked.
Remember the star witness, Patrick Kennedy, the undersecretary? He insists people were held accountable.
4 employees of the State Department were relieved of their senior positions as assistant secretaries or deputy assistant secretaries of state and are no longer holding those senior positions. I submit respectfully, Mr. Chairman, that accountability includes being relieved from your job and assigned to other positions. To me, that is serious accountability.
Ambassador John Bolton is former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. So let's start with the star witness. Ambassador, why does Patrick Kennedy matter in all of this?
Well, as Undersecretary for Management, he is the key link in the decision-making chain from Secretary Clinton down to the people who actually took the hit for what happened in Benghazi, took the hit bureaucratically. Because those decisions about security, about opening new facilities and staffing have to run through his office. Now, there's a distinction we have to be clear about here, political accountability and bureaucratic accountability. And I think Kennedy's function in this hearing from the State Department's point of view is to try and oversee the bureaucratic accountability and duck the political accountability, which is the more fundamental question.
Let's talk about that. What would accountability look like in the Benghazi affair?
Look, the key question here is why did the State Department treat Libya, both the embassy in Tripoli and the consulate in Benghazi, as if it were in a country with a normal security situation? How could you have put a facility like the one in Benghazi in place given the circumstances, the terrorist training camps around Benghazi, the risks to American personnel, the sensitive CIA program there? How could you have allowed to happen what happened on September the 11th? I think it was because of a willful political blindness toward the continuing threat of international terrorism. And I think that unwillingness to see reality trickled down in the bureaucracy so that they were not about to approve requests for enhanced security, which would contradict the fundamental political view that everything was okay. And that, I think, is what Congress has to expose.
Well, do you think that Patrick Kennedy is responsible for that?
No, I think Secretary of State Clinton is. Look, I've served 6 secretaries of state, from Al Haig to Condi Rice. They're 6 very different people. But in a post like Libya, with enormous political consequences for the United States, high security risks, it's just impossible for me to believe that those 6 very different secretaries wouldn't have been fully aware and involved in decisions about things like, should we open a consulate in Benghazi, and if we do, how much security we're going to have. I don't think it stopped at Patrick Kennedy. Certainly don't think it stopped at levels below him. There may not be a paper trail here. There may not be the failure to check box 14 in question 27A. I think this is done through personal communication, and I think it was the Secretary's responsibility.
We still don't know exactly the reasoning behind all of this, and some could say, Ambassador, there are risks that are taken, bad mistakes that are made, like this one, 4 people are dead, it seems insufficient to call it a bad mistake. But some might say there are bad mistakes that happen in business and in politics, or there's a faulty policy that is behind those decisions. How do we figure out what it was?
Well, I think we know Secretary Clinton's answer. She's already said, what does it matter? You know, one way or the other. I think it was clearly a policy that was determined against all the evidence to conclude that the global war on terrorism was over. There was no enhanced security threat in Libya. You could treat it like a quote-unquote normal post where, of course, you have security, but where you don't see a high threat risk. And I think it was that determination that led to opening the position, the post in Benghazi, and not to having adequate security out there, despite the ambassador himself and others saying we can't protect this post and it needs to be consolidated with the CIA post. I think the lower level bureaucrats were following what they knew the vibes were from the 7th floor. They didn't want to hear about threats to security. And the bureaucrats are very well attuned, as they say at the State Department, to what the building is thinking. That's what they carried out, and they made erroneous decisions, but they were doing what I think they believe their superiors wanted them to do.
This hearing today follows a familiar pattern in that Republicans say they don't trust the Obama administration, the report that came out as well. Democrats say that Republicans are playing politics. This is the 4th hearing for this committee. Ambassador, we have the 3rd hearing for the Oversight Committee tomorrow, and there's been more than a dozen hearings between the House and the Senate that have involved Benghazi as the focus in some way. What breaks this impasse in the battle between Republicans saying there is something here, Democrats saying this is politics?
Well, I think whenever you lose 4 Americans, because of the risks worldwide to not learning the appropriate lessons of what went wrong here, I think this is worth extensive consideration. And the congressional committees, House and Senate alike, have not gotten cooperation from the State Department. Believe me, I'm not surprised by that at all. I think this is a process they just have to continue to go at. And if it means bringing officials higher than Patrick Kennedy back, then I think they're going to have to do that, too.
Interesting. A big question about whether or not they'll call former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. That's a big question for Trey Gowdy, a congressman, joining us next hour, and we're going to continue to watch this hearing. Ambassador, great to have you as always. Thank you very much.